In a quiet part of the world, far beyond the hum of cities and the worries of modern time, there lies a sleeping emperor. He rests beneath layers of ancient earth, sealed away in a chamber untouched for thousands of years. Around him, the ground holds its breath, guarding not only his bones, but the weight of a dream so vast, so consuming, that it reshaped the world he ruled. It was the dream of never being forgotten, the dream of immortality. Tonight, let us wander there, not with footsteps, but with silence, as if we are mist moving between trees, or moonlight drifting softly over forgotten stone. We will journey through time not as travelers, but as dreamers, allowing the past to rise gently from the soil of memory, like a garden blooming beneath a silver sky. The tale begins in ancient China, in an age of fractured kingdoms, warring lords, and shifting alliances. But our story is not about war. It is about what came after, about what one man built from the dust of chaos, and what he buried to preserve it. We do not come seeking conquest. We come seeking understanding of a tomb that has never been opened, of rivers said to be made of mercury, of a silent army made of clay, and of the soul that believed it could outlast time itself. Let your breathing slow now. Let the muscles around your eyes soften. Let your thoughts become like distant lanterns, drifting, flickering, floating further and further away. There is no need to follow them. They know where they are going. You are only here now. And here, we are entering a world that is both real and mythic, historical and hidden, sharp as jade and soft as memory. We begin not in stone, but in silence, before the emperor, before the kingdom. There was a longing born in chaos and shaped slowly into empire. Close your eyes and let us return. Long before he became emperor, long before the terracotta army stood in silent formation, long before the tomb swallowed the stars, there was only noise and blood, dust and ambition. The land we now call China was not yet whole. It was broken into pieces, states with names like Zhao, Wei, Han, and Chu, each ruled by a warlord, each grasping for control. In this landscape of endless conflict, time did not flow like a calm river. It burned like a wildfire. Kingdoms rose and crumbled within lifetimes. Walls were built and breached. Alliances were forged and betrayed. And through it all, the people, farmers, healers, merchants, children, watched the skies and prayed for peace. The earth, they believed, held meaning. The winds carried omens. Stars were not distant objects, but watchers of fate. Beneath heaven, there should be one ruler, one order, one mandate of heaven. And so, out of this longing for stability, for clarity, came an idea, a dream. Perhaps it did not have a name at first. Perhaps it was only a whisper in the minds of those who dared to imagine something larger than war, a land united not by bloodshed, but by harmony, not by chance, but by will, a unified realm beneath the heavens. That dream took root in the western state of Qin. The people of Qin were disciplined. They valued strength, but also order. Their walls were high, their laws were strict. Their philosophy was one of control, of central power, clear punishment, and total loyalty. And in this harsh but stable world, a boy named Yingzheng was born. Yingzheng came into the world not with fanfare, but with strategy. His birth was tangled in politics, his lineage debated even in his lifetime. Some say his mother was a concubine. Others suggest more scandalous origins. But it mattered little. What mattered was what he became. As a young ruler, Yingzheng was relentless, not cruel, though cruelty was a tool he did not shy from, but focused, unyielding, determined. He looked upon the fractured land of China not as it was, but as it could be, and he moved across it like a blade through silk. One by one, the rival states fell, not merely by war, but by calculation, alliances, deception, speed. Within years, they were absorbed. And then, in the year 221 BCE, it happened. For the first time, all the warring kingdoms were bound under a single name, Qin, and Yingzheng, no longer just king, declared himself something new, something the world had never seen, Shi Huang, the first emperor. This was more than a title. It was a statement of cosmic importance, for if he was the first, then he was the beginning of time itself. He renamed the years. He standardized weights, coins, and script. Roads were straightened, laws unified, even thoughts, some whispered, were reshaped by decree. History began again, starting with him. But what is a beginning if there is no end? As Shi Huangdi reshaped the world above, he began to prepare for the world beneath. For even an emperor must one day fall into silence, and Shi Huangdi, though godlike in title, feared the final sleep. The great tomb began early in his reign. Some say construction started the very year he became emperor. Tens of thousands of workers were summoned, artisans, builders, sorcerers. A city beneath the earth began to take shape, not as a place of decay, but of continuity. It would mirror the world he ruled: palaces, rivers, forests, a sky above painted with constellations, a body below that would never rot. He sought not just to be remembered, but to live again. Immortality, not in poetry or memory, but in truth, physical, eternal life. It was not a metaphor for him. He consumed elixirs, consulted alchemists, traveled across the sea seeking islands of the deathless. But none of it was enough. The tomb would be the true vessel, a second kingdom. A body of stone for a soul unwilling to vanish. And so, beneath the mountain known as Li, the tomb grew. Layers of chambers, trap-laden tunnels, lifelike guards carved from clay, and rivers, not of water, but of mercury, they said, liquid silver to flow forever, untouched by time or air. But still, no one has opened the central tomb. Even now, it sleeps. Now that the emperor's dream had taken form in earth and stone, it is time to step deeper into the mind that shaped it, and the world of beliefs, symbols, and invisible forces that made his ambitions not madness, but divine purpose. In ancient China, power was not merely political, it was celestial. To rule was to align with the will of heaven. This belief was known as Qian Ming, the mandate of heaven. The ruler was heaven's chosen intermediary, a sacred bridge between the human and the cosmic. If the land suffered from famine, plague, or rebellion, it was not merely poor governance, It was a sign that the ruler had lost heaven's favor. The bond was spiritual, fragile, and all-seeing. Shi Huangdi did not invent this belief, but he transformed it. While others invoked the mandate to justify their rule, he embodied it. His unification of the warring states was not only a political triumph, it was a spiritual event. The universe, fractured and chaotic, had finally been brought into alignment, just as the emperor himself aligned the laws, the weights, the roads, and the script. To him, these were not bureaucratic tasks, they were acts of divine harmonization. And so, his identity began to shift, no longer just a man on a throne, but a symbol of sacred balance. He began to see himself as the axis mundi, the center of the world, around which all else revolved. In traditional cosmology, the emperor stood at the heart of the 5 directions: north, south, east, west, and the sacred center. From this place, he could gaze upon all things. He was the fixed star in a moving sky. To reinforce this image, the emperor commissioned elaborate rituals, symbols, and monuments that quietly infused his reign with metaphysical weight. The dragons on his robes did not merely suggest royalty, they embodied power, transformation, and cosmic order. His throne was not just a seat, it was a microcosm, and the Great Wall, which began to take shape under his rule, was more than a defensive barrier. It was a boundary between order and chaos, civilization and wilderness, the human and the untamed. Yet beyond the political symbolism, deeper forces stirred. The emperor was increasingly drawn to immortality cults and Taoist sages, men who spoke of hidden mountains, magical herbs, and islands where the deathless lived. These were not superstitions to him, but sacred clues. He believed immortality was attainable, not metaphorically, but literally. He dispatched emissaries to seek the elixir of life. Some never returned, others came back with mysterious scrolls or with whispers of cranes that flew over the sea and vanished into clouds. There is one legend, softly repeated, always half believed, that speaks of 3 mountains far beyond the eastern seas: Penglai, Fangjiang, and Yingzhou. It was said that immortals lived there, in palaces of jade and gold, guarded by tigers, phoenixes, and cinnabar blossoms that never withered. The emperor, restless in his palace, sent ships to find them. And as he waited, he consumed mercury pills. A strange irony, for mercury was believed to preserve life, though now we know it brings the opposite. Still, in the world of symbols, these acts were not strange. They were acts of faith, of transformation, of reaching beyond the mortal coil. Mercury, or liquid silver, was thought to mirror the moon, to connect the living with the spirit realm, and so it was poured, perhaps, into canals beneath his tomb, meant to flow eternally, a reflection of the Milky Way above. We cannot know if he believed he would one day rise again, or if he merely hoped to, but we do know this: he built his tomb not as a coffin, but as a cosmos. And what is a cosmos without spirits? In Chinese thought, the world was not a dead place. It was animated by forces. Qi, or life energy, flowed through all things. Rocks held memory. Winds carried intention. Mountains were alive. Ancestors watched. Spirits lingered. To live in harmony with these forces was to ensure balance and health. To disrupt them was to invite disaster. So when the emperor built his tomb, he did not do so blindly. It had to respect the flows of energy, the directions of the compass, the positions of the stars. The chambers were aligned with cardinal forces. The underground palace was not placed arbitrarily. It was set within a mountain's shadow, where yin energy collected. The tomb was not only a place of death, it was a map of power, a ritual machine designed to guide the emperor into eternity with the elements as his companions. And then came the clay men. One by one, they were shaped, not crudely, but with exquisite detail. Eyelids, palms, braided knots on armored robes. No two were the same. It is said some even had names once, perhaps etched upon their belts now lost to time. These were not toys, nor mere sculptures. They were guardians. In Chinese funerary tradition, tomb figurines had long been used to accompany the dead. Servants, animals, dancers. But this army was unprecedented. Why so many? Why so lifelike? Perhaps the emperor feared betrayal in the next world. Perhaps he wanted to ensure complete loyalty, even in death. Perhaps he simply could not imagine a kingdom, any kingdom, without walls and warriors. Or perhaps these were more than guards. Perhaps they were ritual substitutes. Terracotta bodies to hold the spirits of real warriors, called forth in rites, sealed into clay, and placed where needed. Even now, many believe the army is only a fragment of what lies below, that beneath the unexcavated mound, sealed behind earth and silence, there are lakes, forests, palaces, and starry ceilings, and in the center, the emperor himself, surrounded by treasures, sealed by traps, watched over by beings not made of flesh, but of will. We do not know. We may never know, but we can imagine. And in imagining, we awaken something older than history, something sacred. Now the story takes us underground, deeper still, to where earth, spirit, and architecture become one. The tomb of Qin Shi Huang was never meant to be a simple resting place. It was a reflection of the world he had created, and the one he hoped to enter beyond death. To understand its purpose, we must first understand how ancient China envisioned the cosmos. It was not a linear expanse. It was layered, circular, symbolic. Heaven was round, earth was square, and beneath the two flowed rivers of energy, Qi, that bound all realms together. The emperor's tomb, it is said, was modeled on this sacred map. It was more than a grave. It was a universe. The central chamber, still sealed to this day, is believed to lie beneath the very heart of Mount Li. In myth and geomantic tradition, mountains held immense yin energy, associated with darkness, night, water, and the mystery of what lies beyond. By burying his tomb within the folds of a mountain, Qin Shi Huang placed his afterlife within the womb of the earth itself, a return to the origin of all things. Historical texts describe this hidden palace in extraordinary terms. Its floor was cast in bronze, its ceiling painted with constellations, a mirror of the sky above. Mercury was poured into intricate channels to form rivers and seas. The Yangtze, the Yellow River, the oceans that encircle the known world, all rendered in metal and magic, meant to flow forever. As if time itself bowed to the emperor's stillness. No fire burns there, no voices rise. But if you could descend into that chamber in silence, you might see what he dreamed. You would find a map of the empire, not in ink, but in terrain. Hills sculpted from stone, forests formed from lacquered trees, temples and towers made of gold, silver, and pearl. And amidst this world of silence, perhaps, a sleeping figure at the very center, his body untouched, his eyes closed, his soul waiting. Why this replication of life in death? In Chinese funerary belief, the afterlife mirrored the world of the living. To rule there, one needed all the tools of empire: advisors, guards, treasures, even criminals. Tombs were stocked with miniature kitchens, music ensembles, dancers, and scribes. But Qin Shi Huang's version was grander, heavier, deeper. He did not merely want to continue his reign. He wanted to seal it in perfection, to freeze it beyond the decay of flesh. The tomb became a ritual space, a cosmic machine. Even its defenses were designed with metaphysical intention. Texts speak of mechanized crossbows rigged to fire upon any intruder, of traps powered by Mercury or hidden levers. These were not only physical deterrents, they were symbols, tests. Just as only the worthy could pass into myth, so too would only the pure reach his side. But despite the scale of its construction, despite the tens of thousands who labored across decades, the tomb was never meant to be seen. It was not a monument for the living. It was a sacred secret. So much so that many who built it were never permitted to leave. Some say the builders were buried inside, silenced forever, their breath now part of the soil. And the terracotta army, it is said they were placed not within the tomb itself, but around it, in precise formations, like soldiers in a real battlefield, flanking the cardinal directions, guarding the emperor's soul from every realm. Each with a chariot, a horse, a weapon, a name long forgotten. And they still stand. 2,000 years later, they remain at their post, weathered by time, but unbroken. But it is not just the soldiers who remain. The emperor's presence lingers, not as a ghost, perhaps, but as an echo, a hum within the stone. For in shaping his tomb, he shaped more than a legacy. He shaped the very way China would imagine power, memory, and the mystery of what lies beyond. In later centuries, poets would dream of the tomb as a sleeping star. Mystics would interpret it as a mandala of fate, and emperors would visit its slopes in secret, leaving offerings, whispering questions to the wind. The tomb became legend, untouched, unopened, waiting. What does it wait for? Perhaps nothing. Or perhaps it waits for understanding, not in the archaeological sense, but in the human sense. The sense that knows power is fragile, that immortality is a longing, not a prize. The tomb does not boast. It listens. Beneath layers of silence, it still pulses with intention, not as a threat, but as a dream. And what is a dream, if not a reality that chooses to wait? So when we speak of Qin Shi Huang's tomb, we speak not just of stone and Mercury. We speak of something older than death, a desire to shape time, a yearning to be seen, not by the eyes of the living, but by the spirit of the world. A man built a world beneath the earth, and now the world sleeps with him. Let us rise now, not too fast, not sharply, but as fog lifting slowly from a quiet field, and return to the beginning, to the birth of the man who would be called the first emperor. His name, at first, was Ying Zheng, and like many great figures, his beginning was cloaked in both historical fact and whispered myth. He was born in 259 BCE in the warring state of Qin, during a time when peace was as fleeting as spring blossoms in a storm. Across the land, kings battled like tigers, each dreaming of the same crown. The Zhou dynasty, once strong, had fractured. The empire was a memory. And into this chaos, Ying Zheng was born, not yet a ruler, but already an answer to ambition. His mother was a concubine of the king, his father a man of high status, though some stories suggest his origins may have been less royal, more controversial. In later years, rumors would swirl about hidden affairs, secret paternity, and plots within plots. But these tales, true or not, did little to dim the vision that Ying Zheng cast over the land. For as a child, he was quiet, intense, observant. He watched the world fracture and learned its rhythms, not through books alone, but through silence, pattern, and fear. When his father died, Ying Zheng was only 13, too young by most standards to command a state. And so the regents ruled for him, men with their own desires, ambitions cloaked as guardianship. But the boy grew, and with each passing year, his gaze sharpened, his voice deepened. By the time he was in his early 20s, the regents were removed, some by force, others by disappearance. The boy had become sovereign, quietly, absolutely. What set Ying Zheng apart was not cruelty, though he could be ruthless, nor brilliance, though he was undeniably strategic. It was his certainty. Where other rulers hesitated, he moved with a singular sense of inevitability. He believed, not blindly, but with a kind of sacred conviction that the warring states must become one, that peace was not something to be begged for, but built, shaped, enforced. And so he began. First, the state of Han fell. Then Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and finally Qi. One by one, they were absorbed, their kings dethroned, their armies disbanded. The unification was not merely a string of victories. It was an ideological storm. With each conquest, Ying Cheng abolished feudal titles, standardized currency, weights, and legal codes. He mandated a single script so that all people, from the deserts of the West to the coastal East, could read the same laws, dream the same empire. And then he did what no one had done before. He declared himself not just king, but emperor, Shi Huangdi, the first August divine emperor. It was more than a change of name. It was the birth of a new reality. With that title, he severed his link to the past and planted his feet in a new timeline. His rule became the 0 point from which all time would now be measured. History had begun again with him. But who was he, truly? Beneath the titles and proclamations, beneath the rigid policies and stone roads, there was still a man who rarely smiled, who trusted few, who spoke in short, deliberate sentences, a man whose health was delicate and whose nights were often sleepless. He kept his court distant, his ministers afraid. He surrounded himself with guards, with astrologers, with maps of stars and terrain. There are stories of him traveling incognito, disguised as a merchant, wandering the streets to hear the common people's voices. Some say he cursed the poets and burned the books. Others say he preserved knowledge, so long as it served the empire. And perhaps both are true. He was a paradox, builder and destroyer, liberator and tyrant. But what held his spirit fast was always the same: legacy, the need not only to rule, but to remain, to imprint himself not just upon land, but upon time. Toward the end of his life, that desire grew more intense. He became obsessed with death, or rather, with not dying. He called Taoist alchemists to court, ordered them to search for potions, scrolls, incantations, anything that could keep the shadow away. He consumed pills of mercury, believing they would extend his years. And when he traveled, it was always with vast entourages, armies, carriages, priests, always seeking, always reaching for something just beyond the veil. He feared what waited in the dark, and so he decided to bring light with him. In death, he would not be alone. He would bring a city, an empire, a world, shaped from clay, guarded by stone, not as memory, but as mirror. Thus began the creation of the tomb. But that we have seen. This now is who he was, a boy born into chaos, a ruler forged by silence, a dreamer whose dream consumed a nation. Not evil, not kind, inevitable. It is often said that a ruler's greatest journey begins not on the battlefield, but in the quiet moments after victory, when the world has been conquered and silence begins to press in. For Qin Shi Huang, that silence came suddenly. He had done what no man before him had done. He had unified the lands. He had reshaped language, roads, and law. His armies no longer marched, not in resistance, but in obedience. The map was no longer stitched with borders and rival kings. It was one empire, held in the palm of his hand. And still, something stirred beneath that triumph, something unresolved, not in the world, but within himself. For though he had conquered chaos, he had not conquered time. His body, that vessel of will and vision, began to weaken. Small signs at first: fatigue, tremors, sleepless nights, whispers among his physicians, dreams that lingered too long into morning. In the mirror of still water, he began to see something that no victory could erase: the soft curve of mortality. He would die, not now, but eventually, and eventually was unacceptable. To die would mean to lose everything he had built: the unified laws, the perfect roads, the characters carved into stone. All of it could be undone by the next man's ambition, the next warlord's blade. He did not trust his descendants. He barely trusted his ministers. His dynasty was not yet rooted, not yet eternal. And so the fear became sharper, more defined. He would not leave eternity to chance. He would pursue it himself. Thus began his great immortality journey, not a metaphorical one, but a real, tangible quest. He called forth mystics, dreamers, scholars, and sages, those who spoke in riddles and breathed incense-laced theories. He did not want fortune-tellers. He wanted formulas. He sought the secret of endless life, not in stories, but in blood, bone, and breath. There was, they said, a place across the eastern sea, a land where the immortals dwelled, figures untouched by time, surrounded by cinnabar trees and beasts with eyes like fireflies. This land was named Penglai, a mythic island where the air shimmered with eternity, and where one might sip from silver cups that stilled aging forever. The emperor believed. He believed not because he was naive, but because he was desperate. His mind, so sharp and methodical, found strange logic in the legends. If heaven had granted him dominion over the world, would it not also grant him the right to stay, to see it through, to rule not for decades, but for centuries? He sent expeditions eastward, massive ships filled with scholars, warriors, artisans, and offerings. Some were led by a man named Shu Fu, who promised to find Penglai and return with the elixir of life. The ships vanished into the mist. Some say they reached Japan. Others claim they never returned. Some believe they did return, but empty-handed, or cursed, or sworn to secrecy. While he waited, the emperor turned inward. He drank tonics made of gold and mercury, believing, as ancient texts suggested, that these sacred elements would purify the body and root the soul more firmly within. But these alchemical drinks brought not life, but slow unraveling. The mercury coursed through him, eating gently at the mind, loosening the sharp threads of clarity. And yet, he pressed forward. His court grew quiet. His days grew darker. He stopped trusting even his own family. His movements became secretive. When he traveled, he did so under false names, veiled from the public. He spoke with oracles by candlelight. He demanded construction on his tomb continue at greater pace. More soldiers, more clay, more traps. The world beneath must be perfect, in case the world above collapsed. In those final years, he became a wanderer, not of lands, but of the space between belief and fear. He wandered in dreams, waking sometimes with strange words on his lips. He ordered ancient scrolls to be burned, books he believed might confuse or contradict his vision. Some say he burned them to destroy history, but perhaps he burned them to protect his dream, to stop any alternate path from taking hold. He could not imagine a future that was not shaped by his hand, and so he reached further, beyond life, beyond empire, beyond body. One evening, on a journey through the eastern provinces, the emperor's health declined rapidly. Fever, disorientation, restlessness. His physicians said little. His ministers panicked. He died not in the palace, but in a remote carriage surrounded by desert winds and uneasy silence. His body, they say, was concealed. His death hidden for weeks. His advisors feared unrest, rebellion. They loaded the carriage with salted fish to mask the smell of decay. They continued the journey as if nothing had happened. Even in death, the emperor's shadow moved forward, and when his body was finally returned to the capital, it was buried not as a man, but as a myth. Down into the tomb he descended, carried not just by ropes and pulleys, but by centuries of intention. There he lies still, and perhaps not asleep, perhaps still waiting, still listening, still dreaming. After the emperor's death, the world did not shatter, at least not at first. The sun continued to rise. The palace guards continued their watch. The scrolls were still copied by dim lantern light. The scent of incense drifted from the shrines, and the terracotta army stood in their eternal silence. But something had changed. The first emperor had shaped an empire, and now that empire would test whether it could shape itself. His burial, though never publicly seen, was said to have been vast and solemn. No funeral procession in history could have matched it, not in scale, nor in silence. No songs were sung to crowds, no elegies echoed from rooftops. It was a death wrapped in secrecy. Beneath Mount Li, he was lowered into a chamber said to hold not sorrow, but simulation. A world within the world cast in shadow and crafted in devotion. But what truly remained of him? His son, Hu Hai, was installed as the second emperor. But the weight of the first was too immense to carry. Hu Hai ruled without the iron clarity of his father. The ministers, once silenced by fear, now spoke behind fans. Rebellion sparked. The empire trembled at the edges, and within just a few years, the dynasty the first emperor forged began to crack. The Qin dynasty fell, but the emperor did not vanish. Even as his empire unraveled, the story of Qin Shi Huang began to crystallize, not as a ruler, but as a figure beyond the veil of time. Some remembered him as a ruthless tyrant, the one who burned books and buried scholars. Others as a visionary who brought unity to a land soaked in war. But across the centuries, a strange reverence took root, complex, uneasy, yet enduring. He became myth, no longer just a man, but a presence that haunted stone and memory. Poets wrote of his search for immortality, not to mock, but to wonder. Sages debated whether his tomb was a prison or a palace. Some whispered that he had never truly died, that he walked among the immortals, hidden on some distant island, watching history unfold like a river from the mountains. And others felt him in the soil, in the weight of certain stones, in the hush of places where no birds sing. His tomb became sacred, not in the way temples are sacred with bells and prayers, but in the way mountains are sacred, silent, vast, unknowable. No emperor after him attempted what he did. Some tried to replicate his grandeur, but none matched his will. The sheer scale of his tomb, the army of clay warriors, the underground world of rivers and stars, it remained singular, untouched, unmatched. And so the legacy he feared to lose remained, not because he ruled forever, but because he dreamed forever. Even today, archaeologists walk carefully near his tomb. It has never been fully opened. Scientists have detected unusually high levels of mercury in the soil surrounding the central chamber, suggesting the ancient texts may be true, that beneath the earth flows a silver network of liquid time, preserving a world never meant to be seen again. What do we do with such a story? Do we study it, dissect it, or do we let it be? For in every myth, there is a silence that must be honored, a pause, a space where reverence outweighs curiosity. Perhaps the emperor knew this. Perhaps he did not build the tomb to be found, but to be felt, to sleep beneath us like a thought too old for words, a memory planted in the soil, a reminder that greatness, true greatness, is never simple, that the line between vision and fear is as thin as a breath, that the desire to last forever is not arrogance, but longing, and that sometimes the echo outlives the song. There is a place in the world, unremarkable at first glance, where a gentle rise of earth swells like the curve of a sleeping shoulder. No signs mark it, no steps lead to it. Only the quiet hum of air over grasses and wind stirring among low, ancient trees. And yet, beneath this unassuming mound lies one of the greatest mysteries the human world has ever built. The untouched burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. Unlike so many tombs that have been unearthed, catalogued, and scattered into museum glass, his central tomb remains closed, sealed by earth, stone, and time. Not because we cannot reach it, but because we dare not. The world above is known. The Terracotta Army, discovered in 1974, has revealed soldiers, chariots, musicians, and acrobats, all preserved in clay, their faces captured in individual stillness. Surrounding pits reveal bureaucrats, horses, entertainers, even water birds. But the central axis of the emperor's vision, his tomb, remains untouched. Not out of neglect, but reverence and fear. For within this unbroken chamber lies a design so elaborate, so impossibly bold, that even modern minds hesitate to disturb it. The ancient Chinese historian Sima Qian, writing over a century after the emperor's death, offers the only surviving account of what was intended beneath Mount Li. he describes a subterranean palace so grand that it mimicked the empire itself. The ceiling, he says, was painted with constellations. The floor sculpted into the geography of the realm, mountains, valleys, rivers, all cast in flowing mercury. Yes, mercury. Not a symbol, not a metaphor, but the actual liquid metal, believed at the time to possess life-extending, even immortal properties. In the eyes of ancient alchemists, mercury was more than substance. It was a bridge between realms. It shimmered like water, yet burned cold. It moved endlessly, but never evaporated. To touch it was to touch the essence of eternity. And so, the emperor's engineers diverted entire labor forces to channel it underground. It is said that mechanical pumps, bellows, and copper troughs were used to keep the mercury moving, so that the great rivers of China would flow forever beneath the earth, as they did above. Recent scientific studies, done from the surface without disturbing the tomb, have confirmed unusually high concentrations of mercury in the surrounding soil. These findings suggest that the old records may not be exaggerated fantasy, but archaeological truth. If so, beneath that hill rests a literal ocean of silver, pooled in dark silence for over 2,000 years. But mercury was not the only mystery waiting in the dark. Sima Qian also spoke of mechanical traps, crossbows rigged to fire upon any intruder, poison mechanisms sealed in the walls, complex corridors meant to confuse and protect. Some scholars believe these accounts were embellished. Others believe the scale of the tomb's engineering may make even these defenses plausible. And so we wait. Modern technology could penetrate the tomb. With the right equipment, the chamber could be opened, the secrets revealed. But even today, Chinese authorities refrain. The reasoning is both practical and sacred. We lack the preservation technology to prevent instant damage. The tomb, once opened, might collapse, its contents exposed to light and air for the first time in millennia. Might crumble. And perhaps more deeply, perhaps unconsciously, there is a reverence that goes beyond science. We do not disturb this place, not only because we cannot, but because something tells us we should not. A tomb built to last forever carries with it more than dust and artifact. It holds intention. It holds presence. And some doors, even now, hum quietly with the weight of what lies behind them. To gaze upon the sealed tomb of Qin Shi Huang is to enter not just an archaeological puzzle, but a mirror of human longing. The mystery of what lies beneath has sparked debates, theories, and quiet folklore across centuries, not only among scholars and scientists, but also poets, mystics, and dreamers. For the tomb is more than a burial site. It is a story still unread, a final chapter locked in silence. And silence, as history shows, invites interpretation. Let us begin with the most enduring account, the one passed down from Sima Qian, the historian who lived more than a century after the emperor's death. Though he never saw the tomb himself, he claimed to have gathered testimony from those who once knew the emperor's court. In his writings, he described the underground palace as filled with rare treasures, with palaces, towers, and miniature landscapes. His most vivid image remains the Mercury rivers, the celestial mirror, flowing across a metal map of the empire. But Sima Qian's work, while poetic, is not without controversy. Some scholars argue that he may have blended fact with rumor, shaped by political agendas or the myth-making spirit of the time. They suggest the tomb's grandeur might be exaggerated, a story crafted to amplify the emperor's posthumous awe. Others disagree. They point to the scale of what has already been found, the thousands of terracotta warriors, the intricately constructed chariots, the buried stables, the musicians and strongmen carved in lifelike detail. If such overwhelming care and craftsmanship was given to the outer tombs, how much more intricate might the central chamber be? And so, two camps quietly form. One, skeptical, yet respectful, believes the tomb is symbolic, that the Mercury, the mechanisms, the cosmos painted on stone, are allegorical flourishes, not literal constructs. They believe that opening the tomb will reveal not fantasy, but a solemn, well-appointed royal resting place. Significant, yes, but grounded in realism. The other camp sees more. They read Sima Qian's words not as metaphors, but as blueprints. They point to mercury levels in the soil, to ancient records describing the emperor's obsession with mechanical wonders, to legends of Taoist engineers and spirit-channeling priests who disappeared into the mountain and never returned. They believe the tomb may not only reflect the empire, but may be a working model of it, a functional sacred machine, a cosmological device that, once disturbed, might not yield answers, but only deeper questions. Then, too, there are the tales that exist outside history entirely, stories whispered in the countryside or passed through generations by those who live near the tomb. Some say there are watchers stationed inside, not made of clay, but of something older, statues whose eyes move when no one is looking. Some believe that the tomb holds a celestial orb, an object of unknown material gifted by a foreign power from across the western deserts. Others speak of a voice, soft and unbroken, that hums gently beneath the hill, a vibration felt only by animals and children. Perhaps these are only dreams. But even dreams shape our understanding of what a tomb can be. There are also opposing spiritual theories found in Chinese Taoism, Buddhism, and even contemporary metaphysics. Taoist thought, in particular, views death not as an ending, but a transformation of qi, or vital energy. In this interpretation, Qin Shi Huang's tomb is not a static monument, but a holding space, a chamber where energy circulates, preserved by ritual geometry and elemental balance. Some Taoist philosophers believe the tomb may be a kind of alchemical crucible, where the emperor's soul continues to refine itself, protected by Mercury's cold essence and fed by the symmetry of stars painted on stone. According to this theory, disturbing the tomb would not merely damage artifacts, it might disrupt a process not yet complete. Other voices, more modern and secular, point to the tomb as a warning, a symbol of hubris. They see in the emperor's obsession a mirror of human arrogance, the refusal to accept mortality, the desire to control what cannot be held. In this reading, the sealed tomb is a tragic monument to isolation, paranoia, and power taken too far. But even this view carries reverence, for it suggests that the emperor's greatest creation was not the empire, but the story of the tomb itself. A story so haunting, so perfect in its incompleteness, that it commands silence better than any wall or weapon. And through it all, the earth holds firm. No archaeologist has yet entered the central chamber. No drone has pierced the soil. The technologies are developing: laser imaging, thermal scans, ground-penetrating radar, but none have yet unlocked the tomb's core. The question is no longer whether we can open it, but whether we should. And if we do, what will we truly find? Perhaps not answers. Perhaps only a chamber filled with time. Some mysteries are meant to be solved, others are meant to rest. Qin Shi Huang's tomb, sealed in earth and silence, belongs to that second kind, a mystery that resists intrusion, that asks not for tools, but for reverence. It does not beg to be unlocked. It asks only to be remembered. Perhaps that is its greatest lesson. In a world so often driven by discovery and exposure, by the restless hunger to know and name and dissect, this tomb offers an opposing rhythm. It whispers instead of declares. It conceals rather than boasts. It invites imagination rather than certainty. And in doing so, it becomes more than a place. It becomes an experience, a space where time folds inward, where history dreams itself in stillness. We may never truly know what lies behind the earthen mound, beneath the forested slope where winds murmur through low pine branches. We may never see the painted constellations on the ceiling of that buried chamber, or trace our fingers along the mercury-carved rivers that once mirrored China's flowing lifelines. But perhaps we don't need to, for the true legacy of Qin Shi Huang's tomb may not rest in what it hides, but in what it has already revealed about us, about our beliefs, and about the quiet power of the unknown. It reminds us that not all monuments are built to be entered. Some are meant to hold questions. It reminds us that myths are not always stories from the past. Sometimes they are spaces in the present, real, physical places where wonder still lives. It reminds us that even the most powerful figures in history, those who bent nations and built walls across continents, carried within them a trembling human longing to be remembered, to be safe, to last. And perhaps, most gently, it reminds us of the dignity of sleep. Just as we do not disturb a child resting beneath a blanket, nor tear open the petals of a bud that has yet to bloom, so too might we allow this tomb to remain as it is, intact, complete in its silence. The science may change. The tools will improve. One day the chamber may indeed be opened, and what is found may astonish us or humble us. It may match the old accounts. It may defy them. It may collapse under the first breath of air or unveil a splendor preserved for centuries. But for now, we are in the in-between, in the pause before the answer, and that, in its own way, is sacred. We carry the image of the tomb in our minds, like a dream half remembered. We walk among the terracotta soldiers, feeling their stillness echo into our bones. We read the names of forgotten artisans who shaped an empire's ghost. We lie beneath the stars, wondering if somewhere, deep below, a mirror sky still glows. What is left unsolved may be more powerful than any truth we could hold in our hands, and so we leave it be. For now, not from fear, but from respect. The traditional story of Qin Shi Huang, the one taught in scrolls and textbooks, whispered through dynasties and spoken in schoolrooms, is clear and sharp, like an ancient blade polished smooth by centuries of repetition. It begins with a boy named Ying Zheng, born in 259 BCE, during the final gasps of the Warring States period. A time of division, of 7 rival kingdoms clawing for dominance, each with its own court, its own ambitions, its own vision of unity. He rises quickly, becomes king of the Qin state at just 13 years old. By the time he is in his 20s, he is already outmaneuvering ministers and generals, using intelligence and ruthlessness in equal measure. He studies the shape of war, not just through swords, but through roads, law, and food. He calculates alliances, breaks them. He marches across the realm like a storm clad in silence. And by the year 221 BCE, it is done. One name rules the land, Qin. One ruler bears the crown, Shi Huangdi, the first emperor. From here, the traditional tale takes on its sweeping momentum. He reforms the empire with remarkable speed and precision. He standardizes weights and measures, unifies the writing system, orders the construction of massive infrastructure, straightened roads, massive canals, watchtowers. He begins what would later be connected as the Great Wall. He outlaws disunity and rewards obedience. His officials wear black robes, his laws are unyielding. The empire becomes clockwork, but with order comes fear. He crushes dissent, executes scholars, burns books that do not align with state doctrine. He becomes obsessed with longevity, seeking immortality in rare herbs and strange metals. He sends expeditions to mythical lands. He consumes Mercury, believing it to be an elixir. He builds a tomb so vast, so complex, that it swallows decades and thousands of lives. He leaves behind a terracotta army, frozen in clay perfection. His death, when it comes, is shrouded in secrecy. His son fails to hold the empire together. Rebellion rises. The Qin dynasty ends almost as quickly as it began. This is how he is remembered: a brilliant tyrant, a visionary despot, the man who burned the past to forge a future. a man who feared death more than he feared being hated, a man who would rather be remembered as cruel than forgotten as kind. This version of Qin Shi Huang is powerful because it is simple, linear, tragic. It makes him larger than life, almost superhuman in his control, his clarity, his coldness. It is a story of control and consequence, of empire and impermanence, of a man who dared to shape the world, but could not escape the turning of the wheel. And yet, even within this clarity, shadows linger, pauses in the story, gaps in the voice. Even the most well-preserved tales hold silences, and in those silences, something waits, something softer, something different. Now, let us close the history book and open something older, something quieter. A version of Qin Shi Huang's story, not carved in decree or recited in ceremony, but felt like a wind through long grass or the hush before snowfall. In this alternate telling, the emperor was not born a tyrant. He was not even born an emperor. He was a child, quiet, inward, watching the world come apart. He listened to adults speak in riddles of power and legacy. He watched soldiers march and mothers cry. He watched walls rise and fall, kings plot and vanish. And beneath all of it, he began to wonder, not how to rule, but how to heal. What if unity was not conquest, but longing? What if, as a boy, he did not hunger for control, but for peace? What if his dreams were not of armies and crowns, but of stillness? A country where the skies weren't divided by banners, where the rivers were not contested, where a farmer in the east and a traveler in the west could understand one another, not just in language, but in spirit. In this story, Ying Zheng's brilliance comes not from ruthlessness, but from clarity. He sees the violence for what it is, an illness passed down through generations. He sees disunity as a wound, and himself as a thread of stitching. He does not rise to conquer. He rises to mend, and when he becomes ruler, he tries to do just that. His standardization is not an act of erasure, but of connection. His unification of scripts, weights, and laws is not control, but commonality. He sees these as ways to create understanding, bridges across centuries of separation. His vision is one of symmetry, of shared meaning. But vision does not protect against fear. He is young, surrounded by enemies. He trusts few. And in his attempts to weave peace, he discovers something painful. Peace cannot be forced. So he hardens. But not out of hate, out of necessity. And his greatest fear, slowly, is not rebellion, but oblivion. He begins to realize that what he has built may not last. That memory is fragile. That unity once achieved, can be torn apart by those too young to understand its cost. So he turns inward. He begins to dream not of rule, but of preservation. And in this version, the tomb is not a monument to ego. It is a sanctuary, not for him, but for the idea of unity itself. He builds it as a model of balance, heaven and earth in harmony, Mercury flowing like Qi, a map of a world that once knew peace, held safe beneath layers of silence. His terracotta army? Not soldiers of war, but guardians of memory. He shapes each face differently, as if to say, all people matter. All were part of the dream. He seeks immortality not out of arrogance, but because he believes his role is not done, that there is more to teach, more to guide, that the wisdom he has glimpsed must not be lost in a single lifetime. And perhaps he knows he won't find it. Perhaps he knows he is dying, but still he tries, not because he thinks he can cheat death, but because he believes, quietly, desperately, that trying matters. And so he slips into sleep, not with a roar, but with a breath, not into darkness, but into deep light. And his tomb becomes not a prison, but a seed, waiting, not for glory, but for understanding. This alternate story softens the edges of history, not to deny its truths, but to expand them, to ask what might happen if we saw not only what Qin Shi Huang did, but why he may have done it. It invites us to see power not only as domination, but as devotion, to imagine that even the most feared figures in history were once children, were once dreamers, were once trying in a world of noise to make something beautiful and whole. All stories drift with time. Even the sharpest names etched in stone will someday blur under moss. Even the greatest deeds, glorious or grim, will be retold in softer voices, in slower tones, until fact and myth meet like water and reflection, indistinguishable. Qin Shi Huang has lived many lives in story. In some, he is a tyrant, cold, exacting, heartless, a man who ruled with iron, who silenced scholars, who feared death more than dishonor. In others, he is a unifier, a visionary who saw beyond war and chaos to a world of shared thought and order. In yet others, he is neither saint nor villain, but simply a soul, wounded by time, burdened by vision, unsure how to be both ruler and human. Each version speaks not only to who he was, but to who we are when we tell his tale. To the dynasties who followed, he was a caution, a dark mirror. His tomb remained sealed, not only for technical reasons, but because opening it would mean opening judgment. Was he a foundation or a warning? To poets, he was a tragic figure, a man who sought to touch the stars, and in doing so, drowned in silver rivers of Mercury. A man who tried to command eternity with stone and script, but could not command the softness of memory. To modern minds, he becomes something else again, a symbol of ambition, a reminder of how power shapes narrative, and more quietly, a mystery too beautiful to solve. And maybe this is the secret we've always known, that legacies are not built only in what we do, but in how we are remembered, that the tomb we build in stone is only part of it. The greater tomb is the space we occupy in the minds of those who come after. And that space changes. No story is permanent. No truth remains untouched. Even the most sacred tales evolve, slow as roots under soil. We add layers. We ask new questions. We notice old silences. And yet, something does remain. Not the details, not always the facts, but the feeling, the atmosphere of a life, the pulse of a moment, the tremble of a man who looked across a land once fractured and dreamed of it whole, the silence of a sealed chamber, shaped not to be seen, but to be felt. That still lingers. And maybe that is enough. We do not need to open the tomb to know what it means. We feel its shape in our bones. We see its outline in the mist. We hear its echo in the hush between sentences. Its truth may not be archaeological. It may be emotional, spiritual, mythic. For when we remember Qin Shi Huang, not just as emperor, but as story, we remember that even in our greatest quests for power, we are always reaching for something more tender, for safety, for meaning, for time to stretch just a little further, so that we might leave something behind that still breathes, long after we are dust. That is the story that endures, not in monuments, but in longing. Now, we come to rest, not at an ending, because stories like this do not end, but at a gentle pause, a space between breaths where the tale settles into quiet and the dream drifts into darkness. You have walked through more than a legend tonight. You have moved with the wind along ancient walls, stood among the terracotta warriors in their perfect stillness, and traced the slow turn of Mercury rivers beneath the earth. You have walked beside the first emperor, not as a conqueror, but as a soul, wrestling with time, memory, and the ache to remain. Perhaps you felt the weight of his crown, or the loneliness behind it. Perhaps you glimpsed the shimmer of an unbuilt future, flickering like incense in the air. And now, the path slows. The lights grow dim. The tomb, sealed for over 2,000 years, remains untouched, not by accident, but by reverence. And maybe, deep within, that silence is not emptiness, but peace. For all his power, all his control, Qin Shi Huang could not halt the turning of the world. No emperor can, no person can. But in trying, in dreaming, in building something meant to outlast decay, he left behind more than walls and statues. He left behind a question that lies at the root of every human heart. How long can we be remembered? And the answer, softly, is this: we are remembered not only in stone, not only in names carved into tablets or books. We are remembered in the hush of places we shaped, in the feelings we left behind, in the dreams we passed, like glowing embers from hand to hand. The emperor's tomb sleeps beneath the mountain still, but in the world above, he is not forgotten. He walks now in memory, in mystery, in story. And you, dear listener, have touched that memory tonight, not as a visitor, but as a keeper. So breathe now, breathe slow. Let the wind of the past settle behind you like the folds of a silken robe. Let the stars overhead begin to fade behind your eyelids. Let your body become still, as the earth is still, as the tomb is still, as the dream is still. You do not need to remember every word, only the feeling, only the silence, only the sense that somewhere beneath a quiet hill, the past waits not to be disturbed, but to be held gently in the warmth of our wonder. Sleep now, as emperors once did. Sleep, not to forget, but to drift into that deeper knowing where time softens and stories become stars.